Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I'm your host, Rich Owens, and joining me this week, they are back once again, like the Renegade Masters they are, hopefully with the ill behaviour. It's the full FM team, the United City FM, and Jeb is back as well. What a treat for everybody involved. Kev, how are you doing this morning, pal?
Oh, I'm doing all right, thank you. My FM23 this week has been appalling. We'll talk about that as the podcast goes on. But other than that, I'm doing really well. It's good to be here, and it's really good to be back in our normal format with Jeb just sitting below me, which is fantastic. I am aware, though, Rich, that you're not doing so well. So we'll try and get you through the next hour or so. But yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you, mate. You might be able to tell. There's a slight croak to my voice. I've contracted some kind of awful chest infection from one of the children at the school I work at. So thank you, that particular child. I massively appreciate you. You horrible little germ factory. God bless you. Jeb, you're back. It's nice to have you back. Kev, sorry, it's the nice dynamic. You're there. You're just that side of me in the right back where you belong on our screens. How are you doing, pal? We missed you last week.
We did.
Someone's played with my chair. Did you have somebody else here last week?
No.
No. Don't know what you're talking about.
No, was it just you two? Yeah, just you.
Yeah, just the two of us. Just the two of us.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, just double checking. Yeah, couldn't have anybody like horrible on. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm all right. I am busy as always. Probably the last podcast I'll be recording from this room for a while. There might be various hotel room backgrounds across Europe. We'll see how we get on. But yeah, I'm not too bad. I played some FM this week, so that's a nice change. So I guess that's a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
being
helps.
on an FM podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I find it's mutually beneficial for the three of us if everyone's had a bit of a go at FM over the last week or so.
I'm still not convinced.
It's subjective, isn't it? Good is subjective. Good in terms of content, Kev. Good in terms of content.
Yeah, that I can do.
Personal experience, then that's open to debate for sure. But Jeb, it is lovely to have you back, mate. It's lovely to have you back. And speaking of that Football Manager that you've been playing, why not take us away, pal? Because we've noticed you've been back at it with Pescara this week. How is it going in Italy for you, mate?
Not great. I was just looking at the end of my last season. So we did sign Verratti. We finally got Verratti. We got him for 700 grand. He was retiring at the end of the season anyway. We got him for 700 grand and God knows how many clauses and various other things I put in his wage package. Like, yeah, you can have if you fill the Lucozade bottles up, you can have another 400 quid and that type of thing. And if you get an assist, you can have 11k or something silly. He wasn't great, but it was a nice morale boost. He was good for the younger players in the team for mentoring and various things like that. But at the end of that season, I'm just looking at it. We drew one game in the final 5 months, and we won 4 games, and then we lost every single other one, and we somehow managed to survive. We finished 14th actually, so it wasn't terrible. We had some horrible results, like a 5-0 against Napoli. There we go. Kvaratskhelia and who else did they have? They had Osimhen, but he wasn't even playing against me. But they absolutely tore us apart. It was Raspadori. They had Raspadori. He tore me apart as well. Unbelievable. And Lozano.
He can do that, I find.
Yeah. And then we after that we played AC Milan, and I was like, oh, AC Milan. And we went 1-0 up. I was like, come on, this is good. It's going well. And then they equalised, and then we went 2-1 up. I was like, yeah, come on, let's carry on, keep it going. And then immediately 2-2, and then we went 3-2 up, and come on, we can do it. Yeah, and then they equalised again, and then in the 94th minute of 92 minutes, not that bitter, they scored the winner, and they won 4-3. So that was a bit morale hitting. I just couldn't get it going. The issue I've got with this Pescara team is defending. I signed Schlotterbeck's younger brother. Me and him have got a terrible relationship. It's very much a love-hate relationship. It's really more I hate him. Actually, he probably doesn't even love me, and he probably hates me as well now, because he averaged a 6.52 over like the end of the season. And it was like there were some games where it was just like, right, I'm subbing you off at half time, or he had to go up with the team talks that was given him. And there was, I think I said at the end of the network game to you guys, there was a guy, this just on a complete separate point, there was an under 18s player who we put into the main team training just to boost him up, get some experience. He was like had a lot of potential, and he got a 4.8 in one training week. I've never seen a training score that low. So I went to him, went onto the things. I don't think your training's been good this week. He's like, well, I think I've been doing really well. What? So I was like, okay, fine, right, there we go. And he's like, I'm not happy with what you said. And then the next, I think it was like the next week, I got the report come through that he'd been seen out at a bar. He's 15. 15 years old. So I just immediately shipped him off on a free. That was him gone. I don't think he's signed anywhere since, but yeah, so that didn't work out with Schlotterbeck. We signed Rico Lewis. He got a red card in his first game, which wasn't great. He didn't turn out too well as well. I don't know if it's a language barrier or if it's just getting into those social groups. I think it's something that there's a lot more focus on it in this FM, that they're just not clicking straight away, and there's the adaptability and stuff like that, but sometimes it's that language barrier or the social groups, the team bonding and things like that happen. So we finished 14th. We had, like I said, we had 4 wins in the last 4 months of the season, so it wasn't great. And we went into pre-season. We didn't sell too many players. Obviously, Verratti retired, and a couple of players just left on a free. And then we found a player in Sirache who is 19, Moroccan. He's got 17 dribbling, 16 finishing, all the physicals, all the mentals, and we got him in for 6 million. He's called. Oh, I need to actually just look at his name so I don't butcher it. Not that he's a replayer. He's obviously a regen, new gen. Sorry. Yeah, no.
Well done.
Yeah, exactly. He is. Oh, I can't. Abderrahmane El Amrani, or as we call him now, Armani. His first game for us, he played for us in the Cup. He scored a hat-trick. He was just phenomenal. And he's getting paid all the money he wants. He's got a release clause, which is actually nice. Most of my release clauses seem to be under 5 million. So that Cup game we won 6-3, and then we played Sassuolo in the first league game of the season, and that's all we got up to. And we won 7-0. We absolutely tore them apart. It was so good. Goals kept going in. It was really good. He played really well. We brought on a couple of the subs that we brought in. So we brought a guy from Copenhagen called Amu. He came on. He got an assist and 2 goals. Just worked really perfectly. So I'm quite excited. We drew the next game, obviously. That's usually how it goes. But I think this season might be the turning point. We'll see where we go. But I think it might be this defensive turning point. I'm trying to blood in some new defenders. I'm also giving Schlotterbeck another go. Like I said, that love he's out the under-18s again. He's back in the main squad. He wants to stay at the club. He didn't want to transfer out. So I was like, okay, show me some sort of commitment. Come on, please just get above 6.4 in a game. That'd be really nice, you know. But yeah, I'm hopeful for this season. I think we made some nice signs. We haven't got Verratti. We got offered Insigne, but Insigne's now 37. He's just too slow. He's like, unfortunately, like that dream of bringing him in. He might come in as a coach. Zlatan is still prospering in the under-18s manager. Somebody came into the stream and was like, "Is that Zlatan as the under-18s manager?" I was like, "Yep, he's brilliant. Like his attributes as a manager is fantastic. He should actually be a head of youth development, but as an under-18s manager, he's fantastic for me." And the team, we've invested in the training facilities, we've invested in the youth facilities as well, and actually having a bit of a transfer budget to play around with has been nice, as well as wage budget. We're still the second lowest wage budget in the entire division, but we can compete with people. We can offer people new contracts and go, I can give you $1,000 less. How's that sound? Oh no, you don't like that? Okay, how about 10 grand more? There you go. Fine. Look, you signed. Done. So I think this season is going to be an interesting one. We're going to be in mid-table, but if we can start pushing towards getting some bigger results against some of the teams, we did get a win against I think it was Napoli last season. So if we can do something similar to that, get a few wins against the big boys, defend a little bit better. Also picked up a couple of really exciting youth prospects, but it's just developing them, pushing them to the next stage. The other one was Gabriel Gonzalez. I think he's 15 in the main. He might be 15 or 16. He was at Bayern Munich. We signed him quite early on, so I think we signed him when he was 18. He won the European Golden Boy, which was completely unexpected. So we'll see if he pushes on. So I'm quite excited. And there's still that Gabby Batistuta just knocking about over in Argentina on loan. So I'm quite excited to get him back, even though he is a mercenary. But we'll see.
For me, those are the most exciting parts of a long-term save, like you're doing with Pescara. You've got them up to Serie A, and the building blocks are now in place for you to kind of like kick on to the next level, because it's that sword of Damocles that kind of hangs above you for the first few seasons after you get promoted. It's like, are you going to get relegated? If you get relegated, you're going to get fired. There's always just that little bit of additional stress, and when it starts to kind of balance itself out a little bit, especially if you can apparently sign the best Moroccan player in the world, which helps.
I didn't notice this until I think it was after the game. Actually, I just went to look at his attributes again. He's 6'5", so he's the definition of good feet for a big man. He's got 17 dribbling. He's got 16 balance and 15 agility as well. So it's just like good feet for a big man. I mean, he's just going to wriggle all over the place, and then he's got some heading about him as well, so he can be that big lump up front if needs be.
So that's all you need. That's all you need. Somebody who is apparently, the second coming of Zlatan and other more agile players combined. It's what you need. I hope that we're going to be catching back up with you in a few weeks, Jeb. And I don't think it's going to be long before you're knocking on the door of kind of the top half of the table. Maybe some European places. I'm excited to see how it works out for you, and I'm excited for an update next time around. But up the fish, up the Pescara. Good. As well as Jeb doing some Pescara, obviously Kev has been chipping away his homeward bound save. I've been in the past with Italy. We've all been streaming individually, but we also came together last Monday night for another installment of one of my favorite nights of the week, the FMT network game. We are back. We are up and running again. Some of us having a better time than others, I suppose. Kev. How was your Monday night, pal?
It was a delight, Rich. I don't know what else you're implying by that, my friend. Of course, nothing, obviously. How was my Monday night? I'd like to, at this point, publicly apologize to my viewers and publicly say an enormous thank you to them. I don't know why anybody was still watching my stream at the end of our network game on Monday evening just gone. Rich, bless you, you had some technical issues. So that, was a bit of an issue at the beginning. And for the last hour of our network game, I played Let's Watch Jeb and Rich Play Football Manager. And there were still people in my viewership at the end of it. I don't know how. So after half a season in early January or whatever it was, my form had not really improved too much. I was still sitting 19th in the table as Brighton. I got called into the boardroom, managed to placate them enough and get a little bit of time out of them. So came back out, tried to get a couple of better results to sustain that. Didn't really get better results. Went back into the boardroom, had a very similar conversation with them regarding how unhappy they were. What was I going to do about it? Why did they think that it was all going down this way? All that kind of stuff. Used a couple of different thought processes with them. Came back out, had another game, didn't really go so well. Went back in a third time. And we had a conversation along the lines of, it's not going great, is it? No, bosses, it's not. Why do you think that is? Well, bit of this, bit of that, bit of the other. Fair enough. What should we do about it? Well, if you could give me till the end of the season, because at the moment, we're not down, we're not out. We're still, connected enough to a few teams that we can drag ourselves out. Give me till the end of the season, and I'm sure it will look better by that point. And they went, yeah, of course. I mean, that makes sense. We want to stay on good terms with you. Why not? We brought you in. It's only been 6 months. Let's give you till the end of the season. Brilliant. Loved it. Thank you very much, bosses. Off I went. Lost the next game. Went back into the boardroom again. And they said, why is it going so badly? And I said, but we had this conversation 2 days ago. And you gave me to the end of the season. We don't remember that. Are you sure you're okay? Are there any medical issues you haven't told us about? Is it best that we just part? Yeah, let's just do that, shall we? See you later. Bye, you're sacked. 6 months into a network game with other people, in the Premier League with Brighton, having spent 70 million in the transfer window and done a reasonably good transfer window, I think. And then literally for 6 months could not put them on a football pitch and get them to work in any way whatsoever. I changed between 3 or 4 different tactical styles when I knew it was going so badly. That's not what caused it. But when I had to try and find a way out, I changed my style, I changed my formation, I changed some of the personnel around, gave a few people a chance, brought Ferguson in because everybody was saying, why are you not using Ferguson? Because he's not kind of good enough to play at the top league in the Premier League in the first half of season. I didn't think. And then he came in and played really badly. And I thought, at least I got that one right. That's fine. No problem with that. I genuinely don't know what happened, boys. I really, really don't. I don't think I'm a terrible football manager player, but FM23 is convincing me that I am. And for whatever reason, Brighton board weren't impressed. So for the last hour of our network save, I watched you two playing Football Manager. And then, you know, a couple of opportunities rose up. Man United's job was insecure. So I thought, oh, well, I'll go and unsettle Ten Hag and I can get into my beloved Manchester United. That would be amazing. So I did. I went in the press and I says, I'd quite like to be the Man United manager. And everybody within the club, including the supporters association, all that stuff went... And that was the only response I basically got from them. And then he didn't lose his job anyway, so they just carried on, and that's fine. But then, Tottenham sacked their manager. Surprise, I know. I mean, this is, you know, one of those things. Conte lost his job, and I thought, this is my moment. The only other insecure jobs are Nottingham Forest at the bottom of the table and Crystal Palace in 18th or whatever it is, with my Brighton, my former Brighton sitting in the middle of those two. I thought, I don't really want either of those two clubs. I don't want to go down to the Championship. But Tottenham, I can do something with Tottenham. They've got England's all-time leading goal scorer, for goodness sake. It's got to be a sort a shoe-in. So,
what, Harry Winks?
Yeah, exactly him.
Yeah. Cool.
So I applied for the Tottenham job and they went, and then they did it for another half an hour. And then they didn't even give me an interview and went, nah, don't worry about it. So I'm genuinely concerned here, boys. What do? I'm in the Premier League. I've got no job in a network game. I've had a job become available in the Premier League and they went, no. What am I going to do? Am I going to have to go down to League One and work my way back up? Or what's going to happen here? I genuinely have no idea. It was incredibly painful in its way, incredibly funny in its way, and ultimately just so confusing because I have no idea what I'm going to do next. But yeah, that was my network game evening. A few losses, lots more boardroom interviews, and then I watched the two of you play whilst my viewers watched me watching you two play.
It was network gameception is what it essentially was.
You're not wrong.
I've got to say, mate, I feel terrible for you. The only thing I can think of is, you know, it happens to the best of us because, Kev, you are literally the best of us, and it has happened to you. So
several times in FM23, I genuinely, we were talking about this before. I will open up the curtain and say, look, I've been playing this game for a very long time. I'm not the best player in the world. I have some bits of the game that I just don't really touch. Training is one of them. Never been able to do it. All of my players come and complain to me when I try, so I just leave it to my assistant. But I've always been able to put a decent squad together, set up a decent tactic, get them moving eventually, and find some success in Football Manager. It's just the way I play the game. And this time round, there's been bits of it in my long-term save, but other than that, I got sacked in the beta, sacked in my first save in the first 6 months, sacked at Brighton in the first 6 months. I genuinely don't know what to do.
At least you're consistent.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. But can I just say, whilst watching the two of you play, I mean, I was taking notes and all sorts because you're doing very, very well. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, arguably significantly better than, I don't know about you, Jeb, but I'm doing a lot better than I ever expected to do. With
definitely.
This one. I don't know what it is. This Leicester City team, they've got a bit about them, as it turns out. Maybe I'm just going to put it down there to the signing of Jack Butland, because Jack Butland, despite being a bit of a meme signing, and I think it was the first stream of the save, as it turns out, has actually been a really, really solid goalkeeper. At the time of recording this, my Leicester City team is at 4th in the league. It's very, very strange. You know, we're in late January now, 21 games into the season. I'm sat in 4th place, and I don't know why. I have absolutely no idea why. I don't think we're doing anything particularly unique. You know, we haven't rewritten the book of tactics. We're not doing anything mind blowing. We just seem to have put together a really, really solid 4-3-3. We've made some signings. A lot of the signings we've made, it's not been any game changers. There weren't many players that I bought in that thought you are going to revolutionize the setup. Most of the players I've bought in, with the exception of Benoit Badashile at centre back, were bought in as, you know, support. They weren't there to play in the first team. Players like Jonathan Bamba from Lille has been outstandingly good on the right wing. Like, he was so good in his first couple of games, I ended up having to reshuffle the entire setup of the team, because originally I had James Maddison out there on the right wing, who was like a wide playmaker, and he was fantastic. But then he's now moved inside to accommodate Jonathan Bamba. I've signed everybody's favourite young player from Odds Ball Club, Philip Rongen Johnsen, as well, because I remember him being really, really good in Scandinavian saves in last FMs. He came in, and he's just forced his way into the first team straight away because he's been fantastic. Same with Diamande from Norseland as well. Like, they've all come in, and they've all just played brilliantly, and now I can't keep them out of the team. I don't know what's going on. I feel like the bubble's going to burst eventually. I feel like the bubble has to burst. This isn't, you know, the 2016 Leicester team. People are going to figure out how I'm playing, but it's going far too well. I've also taken a leaf out of the Jebaru playbook, and I sold arguably my best player. Wilf Ndidi decided that he wanted to leave. So rather than try and, you know, keep him for another 18 months before his contract expired and lose him on a free, I was like, we'll just see if anyone's keen. And as it turned out, Manchester United were. So we were joking about this during the stream. I was like, hey, Kev, if you do get the Man United job, I've just got you a midfielder, pal. It's Wilf Ndidi, because he ended up
I'd have taken that. That would have been fantastic.
Absolutely. So he left for just shy of £50 million, which admittedly upset everybody. A lot of my key players like, boss, what are you doing? You've just sold our best player. What are you playing at? I was like, don't worry, boys. Old Rich has got a plan. Don't you worry. Rich has got a plan. Rich had no plan.
I was going to say, had you got a plan?
No, I had nothing. I wasn't expecting, because of his value, because he was valued at somewhere between 30 to 35 million pounds. I was like, if I get somewhere close to 50, it's a no-brainer. But I could just see clubs coming in. In my head, I could see somebody like a PSG coming in and saying, £25 million, take it or leave it. And I would have just left it. And then he would have been upset. Morale would have been crushed. The season would have collapsed. I was very, very lucky that United seemed to be so desperate for him. So off he went. The plan ended up being, let's just look at who's transfer listed and hope for the best. Fortunately for me, one of my favourite signings and star of previous saves of mine on older FMs, Renato Sanchez at PSG, wasn't getting any game time, asked to leave, and they said yes. £20 million they wanted for him. So literally half of the money that I've earned from the Ndidi deal, £20 million. He accepted a fairly reasonable wage, and in he's come. He's not played a game yet. That was pretty much the last action of the save for me. And then fortunately, as has been the situation in other saves where you've promised players who have remained at the club after you sell a big name player, they're like, are you going to replace him? I'm like, of course I am. And then you sign somebody and they go, cool, well, you've signed him, but are you going to sign a bigger name player to replace the one that you've sold? And it's like, that's what I've just done. Fortunately, everybody seemed to accept that. Jamie Vardy, who is the most vocal person in my changing room for whatever reason, I can't see it in real life. He came to me and said, no, I'm happy with that. Well done. That's fine. We're okay now. So that's where I sit. I've made some good signings. I've still got a lot of players to get rid of. I've decided to have a bit of a clear out in the remaining weeks of the January window. But I'm sat in 4th. I've built a far better team than I thought I would have at this part of the save. And maybe, touch wood, we'll be knocking on the door of some European places. But there is a team that is snapping at my heels. It's Jeb's Wolverhampton Wanderers. How's the Midlands for you, pal?
Yeah, it was all right. I think we're covering 2 weeks of network game action actually here.
My week before was rubbish as well. Just to fill that.
Yeah, so my week before was undefeated, 7 games undefeated, and I think I won all of them and drew with Man United, so 6-1. And I was quite happily sat in 4th, and we were doing all right. We played Forest, so Midlands derby, I guess, kind of. I don't know. Does it count? Probably not. But we won that, and then I got my first ever Zealand raid. I think everyone gets one, so I got my first ever Zealand raid, and we were playing. What do they call the Leeds United States of America as we got the Zealand raid, and I played them off the park and they won 2-1. So it kind of started a little bit of a slump for us. We lost a couple of games back to back from there. We played Man City, to be fair, and we drew 2-1 with them, and then we played Millwall in the FA Cup and we drew with them, so we had to go to a replay, and then we got beat 3-0 by Newcastle. We beat previously 5-0, so it was a bit frustrated. We've obviously had that money to spend that we got in January that we asked for in August that they gave us in September. So we spent a bit of that. We brought in a few interesting signs. So we obviously tried to sign Orsic and we couldn't get it over the line because we didn't have enough money, and then we had enough money and then it was just too late to sign him, so it fell through, unfortunately. But we brought Orsic in, so he's in. He's not played yet. We also bought in Glauch. Oscar Glauch, the guy with the devil eyes, who was at Maccabi Tel Aviv. Danny Ceballos as well for 400k. He's always available in the first season quite cheaply because he doesn't play for Real Madrid, but 400k is an absolute steal for a backup midfielder or somebody who can go regularly into rotation. We also jokingly bought Daniel Sturridge. He's never going to play, and I peed off a lot of Wolves fans because I forgot he played for West Brom for a season, but there we are, among other things. So we brought in Daniel Sturridge, and then we were looking for a striker because Jimenez has got 10 goals in the league. He's doing really well. Orsic is a good option as a striker, but can also come off the wing. We found Luis Muriel. I was like, okay, I'll go for him. How much is that going to be? 2.4 million for Luis Muriel from Atalanta. It was just like absolute steal. There you go. There's my backup striker, or even my starting striker. So he's come in. That's gone all right. It's gone a little bit better. And the best part about Kev getting sacked, the best part ever, whoever took over Brighton or whoever the caretaker of Brighton was, went, I've got loads of these emails about Hwang Hee-chan here. It's like, does anybody want him? Anybody want Hwang Hee-chan? No? Okay. Everybody want Hwang Hee-chan? Come on. Bargain available. I put him down to like 5.5 million at one stage, and I sold him to Brighton for 10 million.
And I got the sack, for goodness sake. What are they thinking?
So yeah, so that
such
happened.
a double-edged sword.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but I'm trying my hardest to get Kev Alice's old Crystal Palace job. Our last game was against Crystal Palace and we beat them 4-0. I was also just looking through the stats as well. The most tackles in the league, Harvey Barnes, and the most assists in the league, James Maddison. So that attacking midfield is doing you very well.
It's working. Yeah, Jamie Vardy has he started really slowly, and then he figured out how to score goals. And then Kelechi Iheanacho took that personally, so he just started scoring goals instead. There was a couple of games where Iheanacho scored about 5 in 2, and I was getting flashbacks to my Inter Milan save with Ronaldo. I was like, is the same thing about to happen? No, as it turns out, because Kelechi Iheanacho, not often mentioned in the same sentence as good Brazilian Ronaldo, but goals. It's the one thing I've not struggled with this save, which is always a bonus. Always a bonus. I mean, it's been a mixed bag for us across the board. I think this week is the politest way of putting it.
Thanks.
I think for me, the most disappointing thing is this now ends what's arguably become one of my favourite segments of the podcast. Where is Hwang Hee-chan? We now know he's at Brighton. The saga is over. I'm devastated, absolutely devastated, but I wish him nothing but the best.
No, now the question becomes, will Hwang Hee-chan stay at Brighton, and how many games will he actually play? Those are the questions
exactly.
now.
Yeah, we shall
Exactly.
see. But it's quite nice to see like the table is Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Leicester, then Wolves. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm
Man
delighted.
United, Tottenham, Newcastle, nowhere to be seen. Chelsea are in 13th. So I think, unfortunately, that option of being the next manager is already gone because Zidane went in there. But Zidane's
Yeah.
under pressure, I think, already as well. So I think Crystal Palace might be the option maybe for you.
Don't worry, Kev. You'll do what you always. You'll fall upwards into an absolutely fantastic job, and somehow,
Yeah.
Or
win the
Nottingham
league.
Forest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Nottingham Forest, out of the frying pan into an identical frying pan. That could be
When
that
I'm
could be the
Man City
situation.
manager by the end of the season, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently, that Erling
If-
Haaland's really good. That was the other
I'm
thing
not
that we learned
convinced.
from
I
the
might
save.
sell him. Does anybody want him?
Yeah.
Oh, if only you had Huang He-chan as a make weight still. Oh well,
Exactly.
could have been beautiful. It could have been beautiful. I think I'm classing it as whoever finishes second in the goal scorers table is the real golden boot winner in this save, because for a little
Obviously.
while it was Jamie Vardy, because you can't compete with Erling Haaland. He's the man's a cheat code. It's unfair. If you would like to see us streaming some network save, please come and hang out with us on a Monday night, because those are the nights that we do it. It's good. It's
But
good.
we
We'd like to see
might
you
not be there this Monday night. Is that
This
correct?
is true.
No.
This is very, very true. We will
So
not be there
those
this
watching
Monday
on
night.
the Patreon, we're not here on Monday evening. Those watching after the Patreon, it didn't matter anyway because we weren't there last night.
Irrelevant. Weren't even there. You can't. There's nothing you could do about it. The passage of time is linear and terrifying.
Kev still doesn't have a job. That's
I really don't.
Yeah, because Kev
2
still
weeks
doesn't have a
of
job.
pain this, waiting to figure out what comes next.
Exactly. Just because Kev loves a conference, it will be now job centre interviewer, where the options will be: can you prove that you've done X amount of hours of job searching this week? And then you'll just have to go, yes, Manchester United, Tottenham Hotspur, and just start listing off teams that you've applied
Yep.
for the jobs of, and then forward them the
Absolutely.
emails where they were just giggling. But yes, we'll cover why we're not going to be there on Monday shortly. Because it's also now time for our weekly kind of PvP roundup, where we, because we've all been busy, we've all been doing bits and pieces. It would feel weird to start this section without congratulating somebody, because as we all know on FMT, we are big advocates of the FM playoffs. It's a wonderful competition. We've all been involved in some capacity in. Some more than others over the last kind of year or so. Kev does a wonderful job on the panels. I occasionally pop up, which is great fun. Jeb, the man behind the scenes, we've talked about it a million times. He's done so much to improve the quality of the playoffs. That something wonderful's happened this week. Jeb, what's gone on? Well, give us some good news, mate.
Apparently,
There it
got
is.
to the announcement. I'm a pirate, so it's like
That was a
we
great
need to have a
thing.
word with Mozza. But yeah, myself and Tony, we've been obviously in quite a long discussion with Mozza and Ali. I think myself and Tony joined at the same time last year, and it's just kind of developed into like a 4-way agreement. And I think we just kind of made that official this week. So it's I'm a part owner of the playoffs apparently now. But I think we want to drive it on. We want to make it better and better every single time. We want it to be for the community, obviously more than anything else, but we want to just bring in general viewers as well. And we want, like I said, I think Tony's lines is we're making television, and that's what we want to make it about. We want to make it entertaining. We want somebody just to click on, like we want everyone in there from the community and all things like that. But then we want new viewers and extra eyes on the product and see where we can push it further and further. We've had exciting competitions. We've improved a lot, but the ceiling is still very, very high for what we can achieve with it, I think. I'm quite looking forward to bringing in maybe a few more new faces, bringing in new different elements to it as well. So there's long discussions going on. Like I said, I think I started off as I'm very busy over the next few months, but back of my mind there'll be all sorts of ideas and all sorts of building going towards the next iteration of the path to the playoffs and how we make it bigger and better. And I think I'm quite excited that there's the 4 of us there, but then there's a lot of people in the background as well doing some outstanding work for us as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm delighted for you. Absolutely delighted for you. I think, and that's just been the general consensus from everybody across the community. I mean, Kev, as somebody who is heavily involved in the actual product itself, sitting on panels, sitting on your lovely fence, and occasionally, surprise competitor. This has got to be, from your point of view, this is wonderful news, surely.
It really is. I mean, with all of the kudos to Moza and Ali for coming together in the first place, merging wasted possession and the playoffs, etc., and making it bigger and better and bringing new people in. It's very, very, very simple to say without Tony and without Jeb over the last few months, the playoffs would not be where they currently are. It is that simple. The amount of work they put in behind the scenes, the amount of guidance they have. It is ridiculous what these two individuals have been able to contribute and how much they do. So it is all power to the playoffs that these two are involved in the capacity that they now are. I think it's a great move. It is right to say that there are a lot of other people behind the scenes all contributing in lots of other ways, and the leadership, the ownership of the playoffs can only enable the whole thing to work. That's what their job is to ultimately do. But boy, do they put the work in to enable that to do. So yeah, all power to all four of them. I think it's a great move. It's I'm really, really excited about where the playoffs can still go. There's a lot of hard work to be put in to make that happen, but I have no doubt that this is the right group of people to do it.
100%, absolutely. Up the playoffs, up the truck, up the ownership, up everybody. It's
private
great.
jet. I think is the private jet. Yeah,
private jet, or at least company dirigible. Just something that can go in the sky is absolutely fine. Worst case scenario. Henry FM is very tall. You get a ride on his shoulders once a month. It's fundamentally the same experience. Would be my best guess. No, I'm super excited to see where it goes. The way I look at things like the playoffs, I always base anything that I do, like anything creatively, and this is the conversation I'm sure we've had before, anything creatively I've ever done, the question I ask myself is, if I wasn't a part of this, would I still want to sit there and consume the product? Would I want to see that comedy? Would I want to listen to that music? In this case, would I want to watch that show? And the playoffs is just 100% yes. The improvement in quality over the last year has been exponential. As you said, the ceiling is high. I enjoy watching I just enjoy sitting there watching the playoffs when I'm not taking part in it, and will continue to do so. It's brilliant television is being made. Although, again, just happy to be involved in any capacity. I love being on panels. I've really enjoyed the PvP aspect. I see myself as the Poochie of the situation. When Rich Owens FM isn't on screen, the audience should be asking, "Where's Rich Owens FM?" This is the direction I feel we should be taking the playoffs in. I've got the right people.
And then you have to go to space.
And then I go to space, and yeah, my home planet needs me. So it's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, we're delighted for you, mate. Genuinely delighted for you. It's going to be good. It's going to be very, very good. Other PvP news from this week. Kev, you had your World Heavyweight title shot last night for the FM World Heavyweight Championship. Kev Lesnar was in the house. Talk to us about it, mate. How did it go?
I kind of had my World Heavyweight Championship match last night. So, yeah, for those that don't know, the Football Manager World Heavyweight Championship organization run by Michael attempts to run their drafting setup a little bit like a wrestling promotion. So there's some belts involved. And I won a #1 contenders tournament a month or two ago to get a title shot against the magnificent Wickdiv, who is the current champion. So a week or so ago, we were given the stipulations. It was a complicated draft, £150 million to spend. We had blocks of rounds where we could pick different types of players. So the first 5 were under 19 years old. Second 5 were under 170 centimeters tall, which is about 5'6", 5'7". And then the third round was left-footed only players. And the fourth round, the last 3 picks up to 18-man squad, was basically pick who you like within your 150 million budget that you've got left. So it was a complicated draft to figure out. Where do I start? So I was happy with my prep. I'd figured out how I wanted to spend my money. Other people had done it differently because that's the way drafting worked. But I'd done my time in the player pool. I'd figured out where I wanted to get some players from, what sort of value. An hour before the actual draft happened, Wickdiv actually asked a question in the Discord about one of those sections because they were setting up the actual game and hosting it. So they wanted to clarify, and they clarified when it says left-footed players in the section number 3, do you mean left-footed players or left-footed only players? Because there is a difference. And it was clarified that it was left-footed only players, which shrinks down the amount of players in that part of the player pool. And I had not prepped for that. I had just not even thought about it and just found left-footed players. And there are some that can do a bit of both and now on in my player pool. So an hour before, I had to scramble around and restructure that section of my shortlist, but I managed to do it, and that's fine. And then we enter the actual game, and I get through to the lobby to join the game and got kicked out of it. And I thought, that's a bit odd. I don't quite know why that happened. It doesn't usually to me. I can't remember the last time that actually occurred. So I went back in again, got kicked out a second time, went back in a third time, and everything seemed to be okay. So we're now in, we go through the draft. Boy, was it a quick draft with only 2 of you. And I'm reading off a short list, so I could basically go, that's my next player. Let's go get him because he's still available or he's not, or I've got an it was done in no time at all. It flew by, and I was still connected, and everything felt right with the world. So I go and set my tactic up, and we go into the game. The first game of 2. That's all we were playing. 2 neutral venue games against each other. Winner takes all, basically. And within the first half, I'd actually started reasonably well. I was having more shots at goal. A lot of the statistics were in my favor, but then they went 1-0 up halfway through the first half. But I thought, okay, we're still in the game. We're doing well in terms of highlights created and the statistics, so I'm okay. And then all of a sudden, my connection went, and I fell out of the game. And I knew immediately that if that's the case, then normally what happens is when you come back into the game, you can now get in, but you can't control your team for the rest of that match if you were halfway through a game. It just doesn't enable you to go back in and do that. So I thought, okay, well, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm out of the game. I can get back in. We'll have to do the best we can. It was then discovered ultimately that we weren't sure whether the game had been saved or not after the draft. And because of that uncertainty, they didn't want to try and go back to an earlier point in case there wasn't one and we had to go all the way around again and do the draft. So we just decided we needed to carry on. In carrying on, in that first game, unfortunately, Wickdiv went on a bit of a tear. My team was reshaped by my assistant manager in a way that I wouldn't have chosen to do so in any way. And my team lost 5-1 and had a player sent off. So, yeah, that was kind of, at that point, it kind of felt like my world title shot was kind of done because there was not much I could do about it. We were moving forward. That was the decision that everybody made. And I'm now 5-1 down and a man down in the second game. And he was a key central midfielder for me. So all I could do was basically try. So I tried. I put as good a team out as I could. Unfortunately, down a man in terms of my midfield. We were 4 goals behind and we tried. And it kind of didn't really work. They had the better of the second game in a number of ways, in terms of highlights more than anything else. We were relatively competitive for most of it. We lost leads, got a few goals here and there. And eventually we drew the second game 2-2. But it was just a frustrating thing. So in the second half, for example, when I was not anywhere near looking like I was trying to win the actual game itself and get ahead of them and go off on a tear, I had to throw my stuff at the wall basically and see what stuck. So I ripped up my tactic, ripped up the style of play, and just thought, well, let's go for it. We're just chucking everybody up top. We're going to, all that kind of stuff. Just didn't work. Just didn't work at all. It was that typical thing of let's go attacking, and the game goes, okay, we won't see any of it. And just nothing worked at all. So it was incredibly frustrating. All I know at this point is for whatever reason, I was working on download speeds of 4 megabytes per second and upload speeds of 2 megabytes per second during the evening. And I don't know why that was. I reset my router this morning in just the frustration of metaphorically kicking it or doing whatever else you're supposed to do it, and it went immediately to 50 and 11 or whatever it is that's roughly usual for me, which I usually run off fine. So I don't know why it happened the way it did. I didn't even consider checking my connection before because I've never had an issue with it before. I've just gone on, played FM, got off and gone. That was lovely. So yeah, my title shot in the end ended in a 7-3 defeat, of which some of it I wasn't in control of, and most of the problems happened when I wasn't in control, seemingly. The conversation is that I will get another opportunity at some point in the future. There's an event coming up in April, and I might get another chance there. I'm a little bit tentative about taking it, not because, I didn't enjoy it and I want to have a good go and feel like I've had a good crack of the whip, but it was my issue. There was nothing else that went wrong. The game didn't misperform. Abby Wickdiv was all fine, and I got knocked out of my connection. That's my issue. That happens sometimes. You have to take it on the chin. So it was incredibly frustrating. And alongside that, for the second time, I'd like to apologize to my viewership and and absolutely celebrate my viewership, because I don't know why they watched me last night, because with the greatest will in the world, all of this was going wrong on a live stream when you're trying to figure out what to do. And I don't think I was a good streamer. I don't think I was a good drafter. I don't think I was a good player. I don't think I was much. And ultimately, I then closed it all, went down and went, what happened? For goodness sake, So yeah, it was one of those nights. My world title shot was kind of a little bit of a damp ending, really. And I hope that I'll get an opportunity in the future. But if I don't, it's fine. It's Football Manager. It's not the end of the world, but frustrating nonetheless, let's say. But congratulations to Wickdiv, because they're a great champion, great person. Absolutely loved being in a call with them for an hour and a half. They were amazing. But yeah, there it is.
It's the way it goes sometimes, isn't it? It's such a shame. It is such a shame. As you said, the key points there. Abby is wonderful. They're great to spend time around.
They are indeed, absolutely.
Which is great. I think the way that you both handled it, being live on stream, I think you both gave incredible accounts of yourselves. I can't think of many people that would be as calm in that situation as you both were. So that's a credit to the both of you. I hope if you do have another opportunity, I hope there is, because at the end of the day, it's Football Manager, it's wrestling as well. I hope there is no outside interference. I hope you get the opportunity for a good, clean fight.
Indeed.
I think watching the second, I was watching
I was going to say
leg.
Go on, sorry. No, you go.
Oh no, you please.
No, you.
Oh, you fine, I will. Watching the second leg as well. Watching that. No, please. Watching that second leg, seeing you draw the second leg, and until you had the connectivity issues in that first leg as well, it was a very tight affair. I honestly think it was anybody's game before that happened, and the second leg for me was the proof of that. So hey, on a different day, who knows? Yep. Who knows? Jeb, you had a point to make, but at this point, I don't want to listen to it, so sorry.
No, that's fine. No, I was going to say it's got to be a frustrating week for you for PvP, Kev, because you had Super League last week as well, and you went out on a coin toss, didn't you?
That's the other thing. I forgot about that completely. Yeah, I was in the Super League last week, and at the end of my group, I was dead level with Limo. Even on points, on goals scored, on goal difference, all of it. And that's what the game was using. They weren't using head-to-heads or anything else. That's what the game was using. And so they did an in-game coin toss and Limo went through. Now, technically speaking, it was the right call, because in the game that I played against Limo, he did beat me. But it's not what was being used to identify who went through. So at that point, again, yes, it was, one of those random things of a coin toss, and I go out of the group stage of the Super League. So it has not been the best week or so for me in terms of Football Manager. I did allude to it at the beginning of our time together on the pod. This has been a challenging one this week. I think at the moment, if I'm totally honest, other than the thought of getting another title shot at some point, maybe in the next couple of weeks, I think I might give PvP a miss for a little moment and just sort of reconvene myself a little bit and play my own game for a little while, which isn't going amazingly well all the time either. So I've got a lot of issues with 23. And I'm sure they're all created by myself, but I genuinely don't understand it in a lot of ways, and it's a little bit frustrating. So I might just take a little bit of a step back and focus on panel work, which I absolutely love, and that's me on my fence panels, nothing else.
Yeah, it can be, PvP can be a bit frustrating at the best of times, as we all know, as I think I'm going to find out for myself on Monday night. It's finally happening. As we mentioned earlier, the network save is taking a hiatus this week. So if you're listening to this on Patreon tonight, if you're listening to this publicly, yesterday, the Football Manager World Tag Team Championships are also a thing, as well as the Heavyweight Championship. The current, or at the time of recording, the current champions are Jeb's playoff co-owner Alistair and his acquaintance How We Roll Owen, which I think is the politest way of putting it. Ugam likes weird breakfast cereals, and I don't trust him. They are the reigning Football Manager Tag Team Champions. The match that has taken 4 months to organise due to just conflicting schedules and Ugam doing weird things like getting married is happening this Monday night. I am teaming back up with a previous FMT gaffer. Me and Tony Jameson are going toe-to-toe with Ali and Owen on Monday night for the Football Manager World Tag Team Championships. During the pre-show for Kev's World Heavyweight title shot, the stipulations have been announced. There are 2 separate pools of players. There'll be 2 separate drafts on the night. The draft pools are based around reigning champions in the WWE and AEW. So draft pool number 1 is made up of Austria, Scotland, the United States of America, and Ireland. And draft pool number 2 is made up of the USA once again, Australia, the Netherlands, and England. So there is a little bit of variety across the board. We'll be drafting twice. We will be, as Jeb and Kev have previously done, we will be drafting in tandem. So Tony and I will be in constant communication, where we'll spend, if it's a minute picks, we'll spend the first 55 seconds going, who do we pick? What do we do? What do we do? And then just picking somebody at random and hoping for the best. And then the aggregate score across those 8 games will crown a champion. And spoiler alert, it's going to be me and Tony. It's just going to happen.
I've got Tony's address, so in this bag is a sledgehammer. So I'm going to go hit him over the bag, and we'll bring the titles back to FMT. Yeah,
real tag team. Absolutely, 100%, 100%.
And then we play Freebird rule with them. It's fine.
Oh
lovely
yeah,
yes,
totally.
Yeah. The
Freebird
rich,
rules.
Lovely fence. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, the Freebird rules. Freebird rules will be in effect until Jeb hits Tony with the sledgehammer. In the interim, Freebird rules will also be in effect under mine and Tony's title run, which means that under the Freebird ruling, that there is a stable that Tony and I set up on a previous version of podcast featuring former WWE wrestler Big Damo. So when Tony and I win, until Jeb clatters Tony with a sledgehammer, Big Damo will be part of the reigning Football Manager World Heavyweight Tag Team Championships. So that's very exciting for him. I'm sure he's delighted with that news. So Damo, you're welcome. Another title entry for your Wikipedia page. I'm sure you'll be delighted with that. Arguably the most prestigious one you've ever won. You have done other things, but this is surely the top of the mountain for you. So that'll be fun. Monday night. If you're watching this on Patreon, come hang out with me on Monday as Tony and I batter our friend Ali and his acquaintance Owen. That's going to be nice. Now, we also wanted to have a bit of a chat this week. Because we've done all of our updates. We've been busy because it's the first time we've hung out for weeks and weeks and weeks together. We wanted to have a little brief chat about an issue that seems to pop up every now and then in Football Manager. It's happened in everybody's saves, happens quite frequently in real life. I read a really interesting article this week. It was an interview with Toni Kroos at Real Madrid. And one of the questions he was asked was, is it difficult sitting back and watching what's happening to players in the squad like Eden Hazard at the moment? Got his big money move from Chelsea. And to all intents and purposes, Toni Kroos' answer to that question was, why should I feel sorry for him? Look at the career he's had. Look at everything he's accomplished so far. That man does not need mine or your pity. I'm sure he's absolutely fine everyone goes through bad patches, which, bless him, was incredibly diplomatic, because I know there are quite a number of Real Madrid fans who feel very differently about Eden Hazard's performances since he's moved to Spain. Some people are saying it's a bit of a flop signing. So I thought that's something that we just have a little chat about amongst ourselves. Just sit back and reflect on some of the more difficult signings that especially the clubs we support have made. Just have a little reminisce about some bad footballing, and then also how we deal with that in the virtual world of Football Manager. Before we started recording and during our preamble, I had a list of players that I thought Kev was going to choose from. Kev has chosen very, very wisely. Take it away, mate. If you had to stop and think about somebody that has signed for your beloved Manchester United that hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype, who would that be?
There's this misconception going around, I reckon, for the period of time that I've been a Man United fan, that it was all sort of fluffy bunnies and roses and celebrations and joy and trophy lifts and all that kind of stuff. And to a point, that is true. I mean, the last 10, 15 years hasn't been that. But under Fergie, we were very successful and it was very lovely. But there were still some missteps along the way, and there were lots that I could have chosen. I mean, if you go right the way back, however hyped they were or not, we had a guy called William Prunier on loan that lasted like a day and was so dreadful they kicked him out. We had Massimo Taibi, played about 3 or 4 games for us, looked genuinely dreadful in one of them, and he was kicked out. We've had the likes of Jemba, who came into our central midfield and didn't really show what Fergie or anybody else saw in him particularly. Bebe was another one who came in having not really even been looked at and then didn't really play. There's, in more recent times and in bigger transfer deals, etc., through wages or transfer, Sanchez is one that's been mentioned, Alexis Sanchez, who just didn't show up really at Manchester United. Another one would be someone like Juan Sebastian Veron, who came in and, supposedly one of the best midfielders in the world, didn't quite fit. The one that I've chosen, though, isn't either of those two, and it could really easily have been. But I've personally gone for Di Maria. And the reason that I've gone for Di Maria is very, very simple. He cost us like £60 million or whatever it is. And it was under the managership of Van Gaal, I think it was. And I just thought, this is Van Gaal, really great manager over the course of his career, showing us the type of player that Man United should be attracting. This is a guy that's won stuff before Man United. He's gone on to win stuff after Man United as well. And I thought, that's a really good signing. He's going to do bits for us. And he didn't really settle in the area, and he had some non-footballing related issues in and around Manchester, I believe, and other bits and pieces, and just never really got going and never really did anything big enough to warrant the fee, warrant the hype, warrant the name that he'd got, and warrant what he'd got previously. And so I was just left at the end of the process, where eventually he moved on, having, just a couple of seasons in and around the club, and just thought, what could have been if somehow in that first 2-3 months they'd have got the very best out of Di Maria, what would we have seen from him in the Premier League? Because he's an extraordinarily good talent that's won stuff pretty much wherever he's gone. And it just didn't work out at Manchester United, unfortunately. And £60 million later, he moves on. And yeah, so that's my one. But there are so many you could choose. For just as a port of call, though, just leading into somebody that Jeb might want to talk about a little bit. The other one outside my club that I was really intrigued by was Torres, who moved from Liverpool to Chelsea. I know how good a player he was at Liverpool. I saw it with my own eyes. I also know that he picked up a bad injury and had some issues at the back part of his Liverpool career. But to move to Chelsea for about £50 million, having done so well at Liverpool, he then just did not do it. 108 appearances and 20 goals or something like that, I think it was, for Chelsea. And that at the time, that one absolutely baffled me, how you could fall off the face of the earth so badly. And I'm intrigued to know what Jeb thought of that as a Liverpool fan.
Yeah, so we already had lined up to sign Suarez, so it was going to be Suarez and Torres, and then obviously the rumours came around. I think that transfer deadline day, I think a couple of days before, but then it all happened and he left. And yeah, it could have been really exciting. I think Torres was done by then. He'd done his knee a couple of times and he'd just kind of lost the pace and the power that he had. I mean, I think what's his name? The Vidic probably still has nightmares about playing against Torres because he ripped him to shreds. I think Vidic got sent off twice just because of Torres, and Torres just ripped him to shreds every time he played against him. He was one of the most phenomenal strikers that I've ever seen, and he could have been so much more. So to lose him was gutting, and Suarez was already coming in, but then we replaced. We just went out. We bought Andy Carroll, and looking at it. There's a lot of love in the draft community for Andy Carroll. There's a lot of love just in general for Andy Carroll. He's a big old-fashioned striker, but he was very, very talented. He just didn't really get a shake of the stick at Liverpool. It's hard to find a system. Liverpool don't play with a big man, little man. It's not John Toshak anymore. That gone a long time ago. Collymore and Fowler or Heskey and Owen, I guess, are the closest things that we've had to it recently. But yeah, he could have been fantastic. He scored some really important goals for us. He scored some late winners against Everton and Man United. He scored in the FA Cup final. He had a disallowed goal in the FA Cup final. But he just couldn't fit into that team. He was arguably quite a big flop and he went off to West Ham. Obviously, he's always had his injury issues, and I think that was the other thing that was the really thing that dampened about him. But he was just a big, old-fashioned centre-forward. He could have been something really big for England as well. I know he had some really outstanding performances for England in some of the Euros and stuff like that, the Euro games that we played. But yeah, it just didn't fit into that system, and I think that's sometimes where flops happen, particularly in FM. If you can't fit him into the system, it's finding out how to fit him in, or just get rid as soon as you can. And I think that's what Liverpool kind of did in the end, unfortunately. I remember it was Kenny Dalglish was in charge for like half the season while he was there, and he just got angry every time somebody asked him about Andy Carroll. I was like, yeah, there we go. So yeah, it was a shame, but there we are.
Yeah, it was a really interesting. Because I remember, whatever reason, I vividly remember that transfer deadline day, and even back then, Torres leaving and moving to Chelsea and then replacing him with Andy Carroll, it just didn't seem to make a huge amount of sense, just because they are so diametrically opposed in the way that they play. It felt like, you're trying to, solve trying to repair like a puncture with a pitchfork almost. It just didn't work. And in the same way that years later, was it Suarez leaving? Was it Suarez that was replaced with Balotelli? Was that
we tried to replace him? We tried to replace him with Sanchez, but he went to Arsenal instead.
Yeah.
So I think we went through a couple of others, and we ended up with Balotelli, and yeah, obviously just didn't work in any shape or form.
Yeah, it just wasn't the same. It's in the same way that Spurs tried to do it when Gareth Bale left, and they thought the best replacement was Nasser Chadli. Like, it just didn't make a huge amount of sense. So I remember sitting back and looking at that one, thinking it's strange because it didn't suit the style of football Liverpool were playing at the time, and it was a questionable one. It was a shame. It was a shame because, as you say, I think a lot of people had very high hopes for Andy Carroll. And I don't necessarily think that, if a club come knocking and offering you a huge amount of money like that, at that point in your career, you're probably going to say yes, aren't you? But maybe had he just stayed, in the north of England, things could have been a little bit different for him. But now we'll never know. We will never know what could have been. Shockingly enough, mine's not a Premier League one, my big flop. And for me, this one still hurts as a Sheffield Wednesday fan. Because the biggest flop I can think of in terms of a Wednesday player over the last decade or so, and we had some stinkers in the late 90s. When Wednesday got relegated out of the Premier League, we didn't have a particularly great squad. Anyway, we've made some mistakes in terms of our transfer policy over the years, for sure. There's no question of it, especially since we dropped out of the Premier League. But the one that sticks out in my head the most is, again, you could make the compelling argument this player was probably the best goal scorer in world football outside of each country, kind of top flight league for a number of years. Jordan Rhodes moved to Sheffield Wednesday for an obscene amount of money. In the years leading up to that, as I say, had been prolific, unplayable for Huddersfield in League One and in the Championship. He'd moved around clubs like Blackburn, where he continued to do the same. He was one of those players that was always linked in some respect to Sheffield Wednesday. The rumours were always there. And then when he ended up moving clubs, if he went elsewhere, like when he went to Blackburn or clubs like Middlesbrough, there was still the rumours. I bet he'll end up there eventually. And I think for a lot of Wednesday fans, the potential excitement around signing Jordan Rhodes was actually going to be better than the end result, because once you've done it, you're like, oh, well, what do we do now? What do we speculate? Who are we going to speculate about now for the next 3 or 4 seasons? And that was exactly what happened. We signed him, and he just looked like a shadow of his former self. He just couldn't score. He looked miserable. His body language was awful. He just constantly looked frustrated. I think there was the extra pressure of, the amount of time that the fans have been speculating about his arrival. I think they was playing with that pressure on him as well. And it just didn't work. He went from scoring, I think in his time at Huddersfield, for example, in League One, 36 goals one season. Then he goes to Blackburn. He scores 83 goals in 160 odd games. He's averaging a goal every 2 games. He goes to Middlesbrough. He's carrying on the same kind of form in the tail end of that season. Then he ends up at Wednesday, and he spends 4 years with us. And the most league goals he scored in a year was 7. And it just didn't make sense. There was nothing that we were doing made him look worse. You could make the argument that of the teams that he was playing in at that time, Wednesday probably had the strongest squad out of all of those, kind of the Huddersfields, the Blackburns, the Middlesbroughs. Had one of the strongest squads, if not the strongest at the time. So he should have done so much better. And it was just heartbreaking to watch. It was the fee we paid for him, the output we were getting from him. It just really, really tarnished the reputation of a player who at that level at the time was genuinely terrifying. Genuinely terrifying. I remember working in a pub in Worcester in, I think it was 2012, and Sheffield Wednesday were playing Huddersfield, where he was at the time. And there was a lad that used to drink in the pub. His name was Mick, affectionately known as Sheffield Mick, weirdly, because he was from Sheffield and nicknames are difficult. And he was coming in. It was the afternoon shift I was working, and he was coming in and he was updating me on the Wednesday Huddersfield score. And at the end of the game, Jordan Rhodes scored 4 goals for Huddersfield. It finished 4-4, and he just sat at the bar looking shell-shocked. And he's like, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like it. He was just blown away. And he's like, we've got to sign him. So we've got to sign him. And then, it took about another 4 or 5 years, but we eventually did. And it just wasn't the same. So that was a bit of a heartbreaker. That was a little bit of a heartbreaker for me. And he's still tarnished to this day. I do like to think about what could have been. He was playing for the club at a time where there was a lot of pressure to get promoted out of the Championship, to get up to the Premier League. And he was part of the big kind of the push at doing that. And it went horribly wrong. And that's a big part of the reason that Sheffield Wednesday are in League One now. It was the money we spent there. Of course, there's all kind of financial difficulties. And if he'd scored 30 goals a season for us, you could have forgiven it, but he didn't. So
No,
boo you, Jordan Rhodes. We've all been there. But I guess my question is now, fellas, we've all experienced it firsthand with our clubs. Have you ever experienced it in the virtual world, in the game of Football Manager? Have you ever found yourselves in a situation where you've spent big money on a player expecting really, really, really big things, and they've just gone on to do the exact opposite of that? I mean, Kev, you've spent a lot of time this year, especially with your homeward bound journey. Last year with your Scandinavian saves. Have you had your own personal Angel Di Maria moments?
So many. I've been playing this game from the very beginning of Championship Manager. There's so many. You even, and it doesn't matter which league you're in. You could be in the top flight leagues of the biggest countries in the world, or you can be down in the 5th tier of some obscure place. If you bring that player in that you think at the level you're at is going to be the thing that starts moving you in a better direction, and then they come in and they can't settle, or they didn't do a thing right, and it's soul destroying. So yes, of course, I've had lots of them. I mean, let's face it, I spent 70 million with Brighton in our network game and ended up in 19th halfway through the season and got the sack. There's not many more than that, really. I mean, I don't know where half of those players went for me, if I'm totally honest. So it happens all over the shop. I mean, there's no specific one that I can say that particular player in that particular save. I'm sure one of my viewers will probably leave a comment somewhere around this and say, but Kev, you've forgotten about that particular person in that particular save, and he was absolutely this and that. And they have a better memory for it than I do. But yes, it happens all the time, especially in lower league management. What I would say is that if you are getting attached to your players in that kind of environment, you're doing it wrong, because they're not going to stay anyway. Whether they're brilliant and they get sniped by somebody else to be taken away, or they're dreadful and you can't get a tune out of them, so you have to move them on, or their contract comes up or whatever. It's a constant cycle of new players coming in and around. So flops, I tend for myself most of the time to give them their season and then check them out in the early stages of the second season, when in theory they've settled and all that kind of stuff, and see whether there's an opportunity in that first 6 months of season number 2 just to put them in and get a different thing from them, because sometimes it can be a little bit misleading. But after that point, if they're still not doing it, you have to do something about it. You're the manager of a football team. It's, difficult decisions sometimes. But yeah, all the time it happens.
Mm-hmm. Jeb, similar kind of experiences yourself, I'm guessing?
Well, obviously, we heard earlier about Kevin Schlotterbeck. He was quite a big sign because we need a big centre-back to make us do, and he's terrible. We'll see how he gets on this season. Last season, I remember for Bournemouth, I signed... My turn to cough. I signed Alfredo T-Bar, and that's not a lay-by service station stop where you get a bacon butty. He's a Colombian defensive midfielder. He had everything, like attribute-wise. He was so good, so good. I was just like, this is what we need, somebody just to sit in front of the back four, distribute it about a bit. He had passing about him, he had his aggression, he had tackling. He could even probably drop into the back four if he wanted. He was like big and strong. Couldn't get him over a 6.5 in a game. And I was just like, right, I'll try him in a different role. Nope, didn't. He was one of those, no way you go into a team talk every single game and like whatever you say, he's always aggressive. Regardless of what you say, he's just like, you look really cute today. Well done. Your boots are wonderful. He's aggressive about it. He doesn't like it. It's like you could even just like give him like loads of gifts. And no, I'm not doing it. I don't like it. I hate everyone. So he's always on the verge of getting a red card. But he just couldn't get above a 6.5, and I paid like 20, 30 million for him, and I just couldn't get a song out of him and a try. I think we had him for like 2 to 3 seasons, and I kept just bringing him in. Let's see if he can do it now. Nope. Gave him a couple of like 5 games in a row, and it just wouldn't happen. I think he ended up just putting him out on loan, and somehow I managed to get, I don't know how, I got 40 million back for him. Sometimes it just works that way. Like, it might be terrible, but somebody else might go, wow, look at all of those attributes. I don't know how the virtual managers do that, but sometimes they do. And they picked him up. But I think the thing that you do need to do, and I think, like I said, with Pescara, with Rico Lewis and Slotterbeck in particular, is that integration into social groups, and it's mentoring groups, and it's team bonding. It's just adding all those extra sessions into your training. It's having the mentoring groups where you just put a load of them together and they might pick up some traits and they get on with people. Obviously doing the praise. I mean, Kevin Schlotterbeck's probably been in my office about 500 times for me to tell him that he's doing terrible, or he's got, hey, oh, you got another fine because you got 6.1 the last game. There you go. But yeah, I think it's that interaction will help develop them a little bit more. But like I said, I think Kev said it as well, is give it a couple of seasons. If it's not happening after a season and a half, just get rid. It's a problem, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you've got to tear yourself away from that kind of attachment to them, whether it's, you've put the additional pressure on yourself because of the outlay of money that you've spent on them, or it could be somebody even you've picked up comparatively cheap, but they've got the attributes to make the real difference in your team. And sometimes it's really, really, really hard to kind of separate the results of the team from that scenario. It's Homer Simpson chasing the pig, essentially. It's like, oh, it's fine. His form's dropped off. He's still good. It's like, oh, he's training really badly. He's still good. He scored 2 own goals this week. No, you need to let him go now. You need to accept that it's time. It's time to let go. Something that I think I've noticed that I have not seen as much of in the last couple of FMs, but it's something I used to notice quite a lot previously, if I was bringing in players that were really, really, really struggling. I've not noticed it as much recently, but again, maybe it's because I haven't done management at some of the larger clubs this year, and most of the players I'm signing are domestic anyway. But I always used to find out players that you were paying big money for who weren't necessarily settling, a little 6-month loan move back to their home country. Like homesickness seemed to play a much bigger factor, or at least that I've noticed in previous FMs, like sending, one of your Brazilian wonder kids back to Sao Paulo for 6 months, for example, and they would come back a new player. It was something that I've not noticed as much of recently, but that for me used to be something that I used to rely on it. Like you'd spend big money on somebody and they weren't performing. I was like, do you want to go back to Argentina for 6 months? They're like, no, boss, because I'm from Chile. It was like, no. You're going to Argentina. I've already booked the tickets. And it's one of those little things that I used to think make a huge difference. You didn't necessarily in the older versions have as much impact as Jeb was saying on like the social group side of things, but it still helped. So it's something that I personally, in terms of my saves, I might start looking into a little bit more moving forwards if it's something that is doable, just to kind of settle the players down a little bit. And I think Kev, you're quite right. 18 months in, you've got to make that decision, because also, especially in the circumstances where it's a higher paid player, for example, or a more noticeable player at the club, keeping somebody who's underperforming around for that much time is only going to have a detrimental effect on your squad anyway. So you've got to act fairly quickly. You've got to be a little bit objective about it, I think.
I think the the one thing that I probably would avoid, and I don't know if it's working any better, but I don't think I've touched it for at least 5 FMs, is the recommended signing, asking them to recommend a signing to you, because it usually is, oh yeah, you should sign a Harry Kane.
Yeah,
I can't do that. Oh, why won't you sign him? Unbelievable! I can't believe it. And then you just end up in that vicious circle. Or you sign somebody who's absolutely god awful, and then he gets annoyed because he's not playing. And then the player that you tried to sign him for gets annoyed because he's not playing, or you didn't sign him, and you just end up in a horrible vicious cycle. But yeah, I think that bit of FM does need to have a little bit of a look at that recommended signing thing, because it's a nice idea, but please be realistic, or just someone who's actually decent.
yeah, agreed.
100%. I've had it in previous FMs where you've signed like an elder statesman of the game, and they're like, oh, go on, I'll press the button and just see what happens. And you're playing in League One or League Two maybe. And they're like, I want you to sign this full-blown England international that I used to play with at youth level, and we've still got each other's phone numbers, and that would really, really help me settle at the club. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. It's like, why haven't you signed Harry Kane? It's like, because he's 120 million pounds and our club value is 500,000 pounds. It's like, well, I'm furious now.
I'm sure if I ask Schlotterbeck, he'll just go, can you sign my brother? No, because he's a lot better than you and he's 80 million pounds.
Exactly. Maybe we should all just try that at some point. Let's all just click that button again and watch our saves crumble. Just for science.
I was going to say, let's put it in the network save as a point redemption. You have to pick the player to ask who you do recommended signing for. Go for it.
And watch it all fall apart. Watch it all fall apart. There we go. I'm up for that. I'm not necessarily against it unless I'm doing really, really well. Then I'm vetoing it. It's a weird thing. I can't explain my justification for that, but I don't feel I need to. So there we go. Flop signings. They happen to the best of us, but hopefully, if you're finding yourself in that situation with your saves at the moment, I think we've given some more than adequate advice there. I'm proud of us all. I think we've done a great job there. And if I'm honest with you, I think we've done a great job this week in general. I think we've had a fantastic time. It's been lovely to spend a bit of time with you. But I don't know about you boys, but I reckon that's probably a podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The seat's still a bit funny. There definitely wasn't anyone here last week, was there?
No, nobody there. Nobody there. Just for context, as well as managing Pescara, you have been managing Slough, haven't you, Jeb?
What?
Yeah.
What?
Obviously.
I mean, no, everything's fine.
No. I do know that swindled a lot of slugs, but yeah, that's
all you need to know. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Just factually accurate. It's on their Wikipedia page and everything. So there we go. It's been a pleasure this week. Before we go though, couple of little bits of housekeeping and a couple of little announcements that we have to make, which is terribly exciting. Firstly, I'm going to make it all about me for a moment.
Quite right. Go for it.
Check me out. I'm going to make it all about me. So if you are not particularly busy on the 2nd of April, which is at the time of recording, 1 week today, if you're listening to this, when you're listening to this, it's next Sunday, basically. Sunday, the 2nd of April. I'm going to be doing another. I say another, I've already ever done one, but I'm going to be doing another one anyway. Technically, it's another one. It's going to be a charity stream. There's going to be a charity stream on my Twitch channel. We're going to be starting at 10 a.m. and we're going to be going until roughly, I reckon, about 2 a.m., about 16 hours. That seems like a sensible amount of time to be streaming for. I'm going to be raising money for the absolutely fantastic St. Richard's Hospice. If you don't know, they are invaluable charity in the Midlands. They basically offer end-of-life care and, support to families, which is incredible. They're an absolutely wonderful charity. They were so helpful when I lost my dad a couple of years ago, kind of in the build up to that, and then kind of after it happened. The support they offer is absolutely incredible. They're a wonderful charity, and they deserve your support. I did a charity stream for them about 18 months ago, and we raised around £500, and that's what we're hoping to do this time around as well. So I appreciate times is difficult. If you don't have the ability to offer money, I'd just like to see you in chat. I'd like to see you in the stream. Just come and hang out with me. We're going to spend the day playing Football Manager. We're going to be playing my retro Inter Milan save. The stipulation I've decided for myself is that I will be financially contributing to the cause myself. Every time Ronaldo scores a goal, I will donate money myself to the cause. So that'll get added on at the end. For context, in the season just gone, he scored, I think it was 117 goals. So over those 16 hours, I'm expecting a few. I think my wallet is going to be a little bit lighter post-stream, but I'm looking forward to it. So if you have the opportunity, if you're not doing much that day, if you want to come hang out on the stream, it'll be my stream from 10 a.m. until probably around 2 a.m. the following morning. Please come. It'll be good. We will have a good time. We'll give stuff away. There's going to be, if you've ever watched one of my streams before, you may have noticed that if you save up 150,000 channel points, the redemption for that is that I will come to your house with some comedians and we'll put on a gig in your back garden, probably over the summer when it's nice, not in the winter. Don't make me do that. So that we're going to do a draw for that. There's going to be loads and loads of cool stuff going on. So please come hang out. It'll be good. That's what I'm asking of you. Just come and spend a bit of time with me. It'll be nice. And the other news that we have, and again, not to make it all about me, now about us as a collective, the three of us. Boys, I love you dearly. I love you dearly, and I've really enjoyed the time that we spend together over the weekends recording a podcast. I really enjoy the three of us, but do you know what I think would be a little bit better than three of us? I think
two of us.
Not two of us, please, because that
not two of us. Not two of us. Okay. Yeah, mind that bit in the Dark Knight where Joker just snaps the pool cue over his leg and says, "There's a job audition."
Is this where Rich says it's going to be one of us and I'm just doing it on my own from now on? Is that what's going on?
There's going to be one of us, but it's not going to be me. No, instead of 3, should we go for 4?
Well, it was always the original idea, wasn't it?
It was the original idea. We've made the bold decision to bring in a new member of the FMT. But do you know what we're not going to do? Tell you who it is. If you want to find out, come back next week. Come back, watch the YouTube, listen to the audio on
Is it Andy Carroll?
It is Andy Carroll. Damn it. I wasn't going to. I promised myself I wasn't going to tell you who it was unless you guessed it. Fine. Andy Carroll's joining FMT.
Fantastic.
That's not a promise, by the way. That's definitely not a promise. Come and hang out. Come see us next week and find out who the newest member of the FMTeaM is. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a little comment underneath. Have a guess at who it might be. If you're listening to this, just tweet us. Just get on the Discord. Have a chat to us on there. I want your guesses. I want to see how many people get this right. Because for me, one of the most fun parts of this process since the podcast has belonged to myself was when I announced that we were coming back, we were bringing on a team, and watching the guesses from the community as to who was going to be involved was so much fun. So let's do that. One person is in. We are bringing in a new human being next week. Who is it going to be? Find out. Get in touch with us. Let us know. And also on that basis, thank you, by the way, for all the lovely feedback on last week's episode as well. I know it was jebless, but we've had some really nice feedback. We love having guests on.
What?
which we
we didn't have. So
there was no guest. But if we had a guest on last week, the feedback about it has been really, really nice. So thank you. We genuinely appreciate it. It's been really, really, really good. Jeb, we definitely didn't have a guest on last week. We definitely didn't do that. So on that basis, because there's only ever been, because it's just the three of us, if people want to watch you doing things, where can they do so? Tell us all about how they can find you.
I'm not going to be on that much this week, so I'm going to plug somebody else. I've had somebody on in the background. YouTube.com/oldmanphil. He's an FM streamer. He's so good. He's so heartwarming to watch. He's an elder gentleman. He's got a fantastic save. Please go out and reach to him. Obviously myself and the Jebberoo on Twitch, but like I said, Old Man Phil. Yeah, he's been a joy. I didn't realise he was doing live streams until this week, but his videos are actually just as good as well. So yeah, I'll put his link in the description and go click on and have a watch of him.
Mm-hmm. Hard agree. He's somebody I've only recently become aware of, Old Man Phil, but my life is better for having been made aware of him. He's an absolute joy to watch. His videos are great, and as Jeb says, he's live streaming now as well. So go send him some love, please. Speaking of sending love, Kev, where can the people find you?
So a little bit like Jeb, really. At this point, I would normally tell you can find me every weekday afternoon and all that kind of good stuff on the Twitch streams, etc. I'm not going to specifically shout myself out today. I'm going to do something that will annoy him immensely, but I'm going to shout out FM Llama again because he never shouts out himself. Every time I see him, he's shouting somebody else out. So I'm going to shout out Llama as much as I can just to redress that balance because he's brilliant. Go and check him out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 till 3 p.m. UK time over on YouTube, on FM Llama's YouTube. That's where he streams on those occasions. Please go and check him out. He's doing a brilliant job as a streamer. I always knew he would. He is awesome at everything he does. But yeah, go and check Llama out because he'll hate the fact that we keep shouting him out.
And then go watch Kev afterwards just for an amazing afternoon's content.
Mm-hmm. 100% agree. 100% agree. Llama is just annoyingly selfless, isn't he? Won't promote himself. So in your face, Llama.
Llama. Yeah, in your face.
Yeah, Llama. Suck it, nerd. We're going to send some people to watch your streams and be nice to you. They are brilliant fun. One of my favorite things about Llama streams, and unfortunately due to work commitments, I don't get to catch them very often, but seeing the votes for the all-time best 11s that he's putting together are so much fun. I love them. I really love catching up with those. So go watch Llama. Unfortunately, fellas, I'm going to be really selfish after you've both done wonderful things and shouting people out, only because I want, if nobody watches me all week and then everyone turns up on Sunday the 2nd of April to watch the charity stream, that's fine in my books. So the only thing I will ask is that, hey, if you've got time, come hang out with me on Sunday the 2nd, because I'm going to be streaming for 16 hours. I'm going to be tired. There's a very strong possibility, as when I stream most of the time anyway, I'm going to be invaded by my children who will shout insults into my microphone. So I need the moral support. So come spend a bit of time on the 16th.
They got us this week, didn't they? I forgot.
They did. They're mean.
I forgot about that.
I'm so sorry. I'd offer you my support, but that's my life. That's just how that's just how I live. Fellas, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've
always
had a cracking morning. I'm still feeling poorly, but I'm happy and poorly, so I can't ask for too much more. The wave has started.
Yes,
It gets
I've done it over 2 weeks.
So. I love it. I know he's got 2 weeks worth of waving to fit in. He can do it. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us once again for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. We will see you on the next one. Take care. Love you lots. Bye-bye.